Thanks so much to everybody who's joining right now. We're just going to give everyone a couple of minutes to get into the room, and then we'll get started here. All right. So in the interest of time, I know there's still people kind of funneling into the room, but I want to get started. So thank you, everybody who's attending for coming, people who are watching the live stream or who are watching a recording later on. We're really, really excited about today's event. Many of you participated in the first webinar that we had back in November that was focused on sort of applying to law school. How do you weigh making that decision? What is law school actually like? And we're very excited to continue our partnership with the Riverside County Bar Association to offer a second webinar that's focused on sort of the second half of that equation. You go to law school, you pass the bar, you're now a practicing attorney. What does that actually mean and look like? And specifically, what does that mean and look like in Riverside County? And so we're joined today by a really fantastic group of RCBA members who are lending their lunchtime to come here and speak with all of you. We also are going to be offering, and this will, those of you who are attending, you'll get this email next week, but we're offering a series of coffee chats in partnership with the Riverside County Bar Association. So if you'd like to have, 30 minutes to sit down on Zoom with an RCBA member and talk about questions that maybe are specific to yourself or your own case, or your case meaning your journey to law school, not a legal case, but talk about sort of your experience, your questions, your thoughts, get to know their career better. You'll have the opportunity to do that. So we'll be sending out the sign up for that next week. So be sure to watch for it. Otherwise, just a little bit on format before we jump right in. Each speaker will have roughly 13 minutes, which very specific, who's counting, but roughly 13 minutes to talk about their career. And we encourage all of you who are attending to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen, not the chat feature, but the Q&A, to submit your questions as they come to you throughout. So we'll be reserving about 20 minutes at the end for everyone to take your questions, and we'll have a more sort of student-directed discussion at that point. Trying to think what else. We're going to go alphabetically, and so I guess that's an easy segue into saying that we're going to start with Henry Adriano with Best in Krieger.
Thank you, Justine. I appreciate that. And thank you all for the opportunity to speak in front of you all. It is an honor. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so my name is Manuel Henry Andriano, but I go by Henry. I am an attorney at the Best in Krieger office in Riverside, downtown Riverside, California. I am in the municipal and litigation practice groups here, and I have been practicing since 2021. I took the October 2020 bar exam, so I have about little more than 3 years practice experience at this point. I do litigation mostly, representing cities, counties, and municipalities. And the subject matter really just depends. It can be anything from employment, premises liability, personal injury. More recently, I'm finding myself doing a little bit more eminent domain and inverse condemnation type claims. But the subject matters are varied, and truthfully, that's one of the aspects that I really like about being a litigator. Is there is a lot of variety in that field. Prior to the presentation, I received a number of question prompts that I think that the staff here did a really good job preparing, and really captured the spirit of this presentation and the purposes. So I'm going to touch on topics like what was my path to my current practice area, what does my average day look like, what do I enjoy most about my career, my least favorite aspect of my career, and what is something that surprised me or something that I wish I had known going into this career. So first, I'll start with what my path was to my practice area. First of all, I'm an Inland Empire native. I was born in San Bernardino. Uh, Regrettably, I went to Cal State San Bernardino. I know it's not UCR, but go Yotes, and I do have respect for my UCR brothers and sisters as well. So, but I am from the Inland Empire, and I am familiar with I guess the character and the the flavor of the Inland Empire, right? After graduating from Cal State San Bernardino, where I studied political science, I didn't rush immediately into law school. I took about 2 years off in order to establish myself a little bit better financially. I'm a first generation uh, lawyer, and my family immigrated from Mexico in the late 70s and early 80s. So going into law school, I had to ensure that I had the appropriate and financial resources, making sure that when I left law school and started my legal career, that I was in a good spot. Um, I also wanted to find work in the legal profession. So I started after graduating from Cal State San Bernardino. I worked at the San Bernardino Superior Courts in the civil division. And there I got a really good idea of what the legal profession entailed, at least from the court's perspective, the trial court's perspective. And that enabled me to know whether or not this was a career that I was actually really interested in. While I was an undergrad, I understood that I was either going to do legal work or potentially work in the national securities if I could get into that. Um, Working in the civil division in San Bernardino made sense. I learned a lot working there, a lot of practical knowledge that you don't necessarily get from being in law school that I still apply to this day. Um, with that knowledge and a little bit more assurance that I could do and work in this profession, I enrolled at Loyola Law School, Go Lions, and I did evenings. I did evening classes there, partly because I wanted to continue working full time and also go to school part time. So I would leave San Bernardino 4:30 p.m., go to law school 6 p.m., which in retrospect I don't necessarily recommend. If you have the time and the resources, take the time to really focus on law school. But I did acquire a lot of knowledge about the region, the way that law is practiced here. Got to meet some excellent judges and court staff that I still work with today. And every time I go in, it's such a pleasure and to go into court and see some familiar faces. After I graduated law school, I went into insurance defense, which I gained a lot of experience in. Took depositions, drafted discovery, all of the key elements that go into being a litigating attorney that help you prepare for trial or hopefully settle a case if necessary before trial. All of those components I learned doing insurance defense. And then more recently, since September 2023, I began working at BBK. So I kind of reverted back to more of a public focused practice area. BBK is a firm that specializes in representing cities, counties, municipalities in many different aspects, not just litigation. But since that was my background, and because I'm from the region, and BBK is such a well-known regional firm that is expanding, I found my way here. So the more general purpose of this presentation is, what does an average day look like? And for those who are already attorneys and have gone to law school, the most famous answer to just about any legal question is it depends. It depends on a lot of factors, including how many cases you have, what is the status of these cases, are they going to trial anytime soon? Do you have a mediation? Do you have a certain schedule that you need to follow? In that sense, you want to plan ahead. And every week, every Thursday, I get a weekly docket emailed to me that breaks down all of my cases, the deadlines, and those deadlines are usually based on uh, the trial date, if the trial date has been set. So I take that docket that I receive and I physically write it down into a planner that I have, and that helps me keep track of many of the deadlines. I also have the assistance um, of paralegals and other legal processing assistants to help me keep track of everything. But sometimes it's a dynamic environment and you have to expect the unexpected. You might get an emergency motion filed by opposing counsel the the day before a weekend or something like that, and you have to oppose it by that day or next Monday. It's a very dynamic profession, and you always have to expect the unexpected. That means that you can have 8 to 5 sometimes, but even then, especially in this post-COVID and more remote world, it's kind of a standby mode. You might receive an email late at night from a partner or even, just opposing counsel, and although you might not be working at the time, being constantly connected can sometimes, creep into the background of your thought process as you're trying to wind down for the evening. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's just the reality. Is especially since we're in the standby mode and post COVID, it's you're always approachable. You also have the opportunity these days to work from home or even go in office. Personally, I like coming into the office. It helps me keep my domestic life and my work life separate as much as possible. To the extent I can, if I'm going home, I will wind down. Otherwise, if I'm in the office, I know I'm here for a single purpose, and that's to work. And when I leave, if I can, I will log off. Most of the time, when I'm working, I'm sitting behind a desk and I'm writing, I am reading, I'm drafting, sending emails, taking phone calls. Um, it's not the most thrilling life, but there are at times when it can be very exciting. Taking a deposition, for example, going to a hearing, or taking a mediation is all very exciting. Most hearings are now remote. I take the time to go to San Bernardino Superior Court in person whenever I can. I think that going in person to court hearings is very important. It's different speaking in front of a camera than it is speaking in front of a judge in person, and uh, and that's just another exciting aspect of being a litigating attorney. Similarly, going to trial entails a lot of preparation work, and being able to speak convincingly to a jury is in itself an art that you only really get to master or even practice by going in person. So most days are from 8 to 9 p.m. approximately. I do work on the weekends occasionally, but it really just depends. And I try to take at least one day off. Realistically, you should find what works best for you. Sleep, diet, and exercise are really important. I try to go at least 3 times a week to the gym to exercise, clear my mind. Similarly, family, friends, and finding a hobby that suits you and that you can use to escape from the legal profession for the time being is something that is really beneficial if you can swing it. The thing that I enjoy most about my career is the sense of profession and community. This is a profession, and the it's a small community. It's important to recognize that as attorneys, we are representing clients who are sometimes at truthfully some of the most vulnerable moments in their lives. Uh, Other times, clients are just trying to navigate the legal profession as best they can, and so as attorneys, we stand there to assist them in that process, and it's a profession, and we have to act accordingly. I also enjoy the fact that we get specialized knowledge from experts. For example, when I went to law school, I didn't know that I was going to be speaking with orthopedic surgeons or electrical engineers about a case involving, I don't know, subsurface electrical wires or something like that. These are all highly specialized skills that others and knowledge that others have. But where we come in is we apply that specialized knowledge in the legal setting and in a way that can hopefully convince a jury or a judge that we have the better legal argument. And when that works out, it is very gratifying. My least favorite aspect of my career is, I alluded to this earlier, is this is kind of a standby profession, especially in the remote work era and post-COVID era. Um, you're always approachable, and that's just a reality of the profession, at least from the litigation perspective. Um, similarly billable hours. You will find that this career is built on the billable hour, and capturing and entering in that time um, is it's a skill. It's actually an art, I would say. It's something that it's probably my least favorite aspect of the career, to be honest. Something that I wish I had known from earlier is that there's many ways to know if this is a good career for you early on. So, since this is UCR that I'm speaking to, there are many legal aid societies in Riverside. There's Inland Counties Legal Services, which I volunteered for when I was going to Loyola. Inland Empire Latino Lawyers Association is another one that I'm currently offering some pro bono legal services to. And then if you're in San Bernardino, the Legal Aid Society of San Bernardino as well. If you volunteer or you work in a legal adjacent field, you can get that sense of whether this is a good profession for you. Similarly, you could go to court. You can go to the Riverside Superior or San Bernardino Superior Courts. Most hearings are public. You can listen to the attorneys make arguments or appear in front of a judge. All of these are really good ways to get to know if this is something that you would enjoy before going to law school. And then, of course, I'm here after everyone else has finished speaking to answer any questions. But with that, I will defer to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Henry. That's fantastic. We appreciate your insight very much. Without wasting any time, I want to skip over to Chris Johnson with Reed and Hellier. I think you're muted, Chris. There we go. Or I said, there we go too soon.
Okay, how's this?
Perfect.
All right, sorry everyone. Thank you for letting me be a part of this esteemed panel. I can tell just from the first speaker how accomplished this panel is. I look forward to hearing everybody's path and story, how they became and what they do in their practice. I am with Reed and Hillier in Riverside. I've been a lawyer now for 30 years. Came out of the Southern California area, went to Long Beach State a long time ago, and then went to University of San Diego Law School. I was late in deciding to go to law school. I was looking at other careers, and I encourage everyone to get the feedback from people that you're running with, either working with or doing life. I had some people along the way that encouraged me to consider law school. I was done with undergrad and was working as an intern at the city of La Palma in Orange County. I was also working as a substitute teacher in Paramount, and I was also working at a law firm in Downey, California, just to get a smattering of what I wanted to do next. And actually, the city government position, some people there said, you should consider law school. And nothing at the law firm in Downey dissuaded me from doing that. So I did. I applied and was able to get in. Just one step back on law school. If you have the opportunity, I'm sure that it came up in the prior seminar, but the book 1L from Scott Turow is a good book for, it's an old book, 45 years old, but it's a good book for understanding what the first year experience of law school is. I graduated law school in 1993 and began working at an insurance defense firm in San Diego. It was an old named firm with a bunch of trial lawyers, and we did a lot of different types of cases, but always going to trial. And so you had a certain personality that you run across with a lot of trial lawyers that are old school. They were good trainers. They worked the young lawyers pretty hard, but we learned a lot, put in a lot of hours. And that's one thing I would encourage you as a lawyer or a young lawyer is recognize that some of it's very difficult and taxing, but it's for the benefit of the practice and the legal community. And you also find yourself running with good people. If you're a sole practitioner or you start in a smaller firm, you run a little bit of a disadvantage. That's why the RCBA or Legal Aid Society and other outlets are so important to build community. You need to have the opportunity to meet lawyers, and whatever their age or experience curve, you want to meet them. You want to identify the good ones, good people, as well as good practitioners. It's just going to make it so much easier for you to navigate what can be a very stressful practice and can be a very lonely practice if you don't have people that you can run with or connect. So I was at that firm for 6 years, doing primarily construction defect and medical malpractice cases. We were representing doctors and hospitals, and we were representing builders and developers who were getting sued for homes that had roof leaks or moving soil. I found that to be pretty dry and troubling in the sense that it's not really what I wanted to do as a lawyer. And one of the opportunities that law gives you is you're really never pigeonholed. You are able to, again, with good people in your life, supporting you and working with you, you're able to navigate and make changes. So I did make a change and ended up at a small boutique firm that was in-house for one insurance company. And I was there for 5 years. It was 6 lawyers, and we only represented one client, the insurance company, with lawsuits. We were asked to assist their insureds, but we were employees paid by the insurance company. That left me a little more free time because my wife and I were having our babies, and we had 2 girls in that time frame, and I was able to not work as many weekends or evening hours. So the law does give you the opportunity to shift, and so I did. In that daily practice, it was very similar to the prior job, which was, as was recently described, you're taking depositions, you're answering the phone, at that time, email was just coming on. So you were basically sending letters and writing letters and going to court. After 5 years in that position, I started my own practice, and I had a partner, and we had a couple of lawyers come with us, and we were able to work for 5 years as a smaller practice where I was an owner. And that makes you a business owner, and you are also running the law practice and representing your clients. So that gave me a lot of freedom to carve out some time, but not without stress, because you have to make sure you're making payroll. So that was a 10-year experience of my own practice, and it was a mix of litigation as well as contract work, looking over people's contracts and agreements. Same sort of daily practice. It's really a people-driven practice. So you're on the phone, you're on emails, and you're meeting with people, whether it's in court or in a conference room or over a coffee table. I joined Reed and Hillier in 2016. I've been with them 7 years now, almost 8. And when I came over to Reed and Hillier, it was about 12 lawyers, and some of counsel lawyers were semi-retired. So there's about 15 or 16 of us. And I came over and became a partner and got vested with the group. My partners do trial work almost exclusively, some bankruptcy and some trust and estates work and immigration. But I was able to join the leadership of the firm, and I carved out the contract work as what I wanted to do. I still have litigation, but very few cases. So I find myself talking with people who are either selling their business, looking to buy a business, selling some investment holdings, joining a group of people needing a buyout agreement or a partnership agreement. Real estate transactions often have a lot of money involved, so people will hire lawyers. So again, it's a people-run business. So you're meeting with people and going over what their aspirations or objectives are, and you're trying to help them attain that. I tell the young lawyers at the firm, or younger, I should say, that what we're dealing with with our clients is people's problems that they can't handle themselves, or their projects that they can't pull off by themselves. That's why they're going to pay for a lawyer. They have a problem or a plan. And on the agreement side, what I tend to enjoy the most is helping someone come up with their plan and how to effectuate it. Are they going to be a corporation? Are they going to be an LLC? What type of agreements do they need to work on to get done? What are the pitfalls or the risks concerned? For instance, every joint agreement between people, you're catching them often in a moment of idealism. And when the turbulence starts, do you have an exit strategy? So you don't end up hiring my partners to sue each other. That's a lot of money. And not a lot of work getting done on your side. So I tell them, let's put together the plan now in the honeymoon period, and then we can work out the problems because we'll have it sort of anticipated. So that's what I do on a daily basis. It's the same. It's talking and trying to capture from the other side of the table what people are telling me. If I'm a good listener, I will do a good job for the clients. The best part of the job is the people. And the least favorite part of the job is the people. You're going to have opposing counsel that you just don't see eye to eye. You're going to have bosses that you just don't see eye to eye. Or worse, you're going to have people that, you're going to have to continue to keep your integrity, and you're going to have to not cut corners. So it is a career and a profession that requires fortitude. But you need that community around you for that to make the right decisions. So it's a people-driven business. I think I've said that now. The surprise is how flexible the practice is. You don't even have to practice law after law school, as I'm sure you are. But if you do, you're not pigeonholed. You're not stuck. There's no rut. It's really good for your mental health to go into all these challenging decisions and get your support. Look around and make good decisions, and we'll see you in court sometime or in a conference room. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Chris. A reminder for everybody who's in the audience, you can go ahead and submit questions as they come to you using the Q&A feature. I saw some of you guys came in after that announcement. So just if you do have questions, we're going to be holding them all for the very end. So do submit as they come to you. And with that, we are going to switch over now to Elizabeth Lord with Lord and Brooker.
Okay. Hi, hello everybody. My name is Elizabeth Lord and my firm is Lord and Brooker. Lord and Brooker was opened in just October of 2022. However, I've been practicing, I've been a licensed attorney since 1999. I've been practicing family law since 2005. I graduated somewhat like Chris a very long time ago from the University of California, Santa Cruz with a degree in language studies. When I did not decide when I was in college that I wanted to go to law school, I decided probably about a year after I graduated, when I had this degree that I really didn't know what to do with. I spoke a lot of Spanish, a little bit of French, and had a lot of linguistics, but I was still a waitress. So I went to our career center at UC Santa Cruz, and I just started looking at careers. And I looked at law, and I kind of just had a feeling that that really felt right. And it turned out to be probably the best decision I ever made. I applied to several schools in California. I ended up doing my first year at Golden Gate University in San Francisco. And then I transferred to the University of Santa Clara, and that's where I received my degree. With regards to law school, some advice that I would give is, if you think you want to practice in the courtroom, there's a lot of opportunities in law school to find that out and to get some courtroom experience. So when I was in law school, I was part of a certified clinic that did family law, as well as criminal law and juvenile dependency. And I also got myself certified as what they call a certified law student. When you're a certified law student, that gives you the opportunity to appear in court and actually handle and argue cases while you are being directly supervised right next to you by a licensed attorney. So when I was in law school, I interned both in at a public defender's office in Santa Cruz, both doing juvenile dependency as well as criminal law. I did that at the public defender's office in Santa Cruz. So as I stated, I got my license in '99, but I didn't start practicing family law since 2005. So prior to that, I thought I wanted to be a criminal defense attorney. And so out of law school, I joined a public defender's office, where I actually ended up handling their juvenile dependency calendar, which was representing parents whose children had been taken away from them by CPS. And that just offered me a lot of very immediate courtroom experience. And when I get to what my favorite part of being a lawyer is, it is going to court, it is doing court hearings, and being in that courtroom environment. After law school, I joined the public defender's office, and I was still handling juvenile dependency for them. And then that contract went to the state, and then I started doing misdemeanors in the public defender's office. I've done one jury trial. I won, so I am 1 for 1 on my jury trials. I haven't done one since, because since then the practice that I've done is court trials, where the judge serves as the trier of fact. In between 1999 and 2005, I was in Santa Cruz County doing that at the public defender's office. And then about 2002, I actually went and tried to open up my own practice, because the dependency contract went to the state, and I had some private cases, so I was doing that. And then I started picking up some family law cases, and that was probably my first exposure to family law. In 2005, I moved down to Riverside County, and I joined a practice where their primary practice was family law. So that was my first introduction to family law. So I would have to say that I never really chose family law. I believe family law chose me. So just over the years, the family law portion of the practice just grew more than the criminal side. I stopped doing criminal law entirely in about 2013, when I went to a larger family law firm that's based out of Corona in Riverside County. I was there for about 5 years, and then I went to a smaller firm in downtown Riverside. I was there for about 4 years. In 2022, I opened up my own office, and I did that for about a year. And then I joined up with my good friend, Michelle Brooker. And that's how we formed Lord & Brooker. So I am a certified family law specialist. I became certified in 2013. So that's kind of how I got to where I am now. Michelle and I run 2 primary offices and 1 satellite offices. It's currently just the 2 of us, and an excellent staff of paralegals. And I cannot emphasize enough that the importance and impact having your support staff has on your ability to practice law and to hit your deadlines, to be where you need to be when you're supposed to be there. They are my right hand. I couldn't do this without them. And I've also just the utmost appreciation for all the hard work they do, keeping me where I need to be. My average day, it varies. I don't work quite the hours, but that Henry works. But I do work a lot of hours because I do own my own business. And so there's not just the legal part of what I do and practicing of law and going to court hearings. It is dealing with marketing issues. It is interviewing new clients because you do need to keep those new clients coming in. Even when you're wondering if you can handle anymore, you still need to be signing new clients on a regular basis. I typically start my day with going to court. I typically probably have maybe anywhere from 5 to 10 court hearings per week that I'm going to need to handle. The areas that I cover now are primarily downtown Riverside, downtown San Bernardino, and Hemet, which is now moving out to Menifee. We'll be out in Menifee shortly. So unlike civil, family law is in person. And like I said, that's probably my favorite part of what I do. It is an opportunity to meet other attorneys, to meet and confer with other attorneys, to talk to other attorneys. And also it's the most exciting part of this practice, I believe, is getting up before a judge and making your case for your client to the court. And I can't describe, just how great it feels when you are able to say that thing or find that one argument that you can put forth to the judge that gets the judge to see your side. And I've been in hearings where I'm losing and I am able to argue my client's case to a judge and change that judge's position to where they agree with what I am asserting the court should rule, and then they rule in my favor. And that is probably the best feeling, walking out of that courtroom, knowing that you got that result for your client. On the flip side, it's no fun to lose. And in my profession, whether or not you're successful in court really has a lot to do with making sure that you're setting your clients' expectations as to what the possibilities are, what the possible results are that they will achieve in that court hearing, but also making sure that you are tailoring your positions to something that the judge is likely to order for you. So you don't want to go in there with an unreasonable position. If you go in with an unreasonable position, you don't have substantial or sufficient evidence to back up that position, you're going to walk out of that position losing for your client, and you're going to have to sit down and explain to your client why it is that you did not get what you told them that you could get for them. So in the practice of family law, that is something that I think is very important. I don't spend a lot of time at my desk. I am usually in court. I am meeting with clients. I could actually say that I actually like my desk time because it's the time where it's quiet, where I can get caught up on all the things that my paralegals have prepared for me to review that need to get filed with the court. The one thing I don't like is when that stack gets a little tall, and I know there's stuff in there that's due and deadlines that I need to hit. So the hardest part of my day is trying to carve out that time where I can sit down and review all the hard work that my paralegals have done for me. My least favorite aspect is dealing with attorneys that don't have professional courtesy. And unfortunately, I think in every aspect of this career, you're going to run into other attorneys that don't have courtesy, that you have an emergency and they won't agree to continue a hearing for you. You need a slight extension on a deadline for discovery, and they won't give that to you. You try to put out settlement offers and they won't respond, or they come back with unreasonable offers. I think that as a profession, it is so important that we as attorneys treat each other with courtesy, because you never know when you're going to need that courtesy back for you. So if you do go in this profession, be one of those attorneys that people feel they can pick up the phone and talk to and have a reasonable settlement conversation with, they're going to be treated with respect. Nobody's going to, and that you're going to be reasonable about extending deadlines and continuing hearings, because your reputation in the legal community for your courtesy is one of the most valuable things that you can attain for yourself as an attorney. Something that surprised me, I'm going to say about family law, is really how much I like it. A lot of people look at family law as the red-haired stepchild of the law. Why would we want to do this? Why would we want to deal with issues such as who has, Christmas and what time is the exchange? And there is that aspect of that. But one of the things about family law is you really have an opportunity to impact somebody's life for a long term. They are coming to you really in a state of crisis. Their life is falling apart. They don't know what's going to happen with their children. Maybe there's domestic violence that needs to be dealt with. And they don't know, what kind of support am I going to receive? How is my property going to be divided? Basically, am I going to be okay on the other side of this? And I'm able to sit down with them. I'm able to give them an honest assessment of their situation, give them an honest, let them know, okay, this is what you're looking at support. If I have a victim of domestic violence, I'm able to file an emergency order with the court, get the abuser kicked out of the house, get my client full custody of the children within about a 24-hour period. So being able to provide that service to our community and our community at large, I think is extraordinarily valuable. And how much I enjoy being able to be a part of that, I think surprised me the most about being a family law practitioner. One thing that I would also agree with that Mr. Johnson talked about was having a mentor. I have always had a mentor. When I was practicing juvenile law, there was an attorney that I identified that when I had questions, I was able to reach out to that attorney to bounce ideas off. I've been doing this for 25 years. I still reach out to other attorneys. Just about a month ago, I had an issue that I'd never seen before. So I reached out to an attorney that probably has about the same experience as I do and said, hey, have you seen this? And that attorney was able to help me brainstorm as to kind of what direction that I would take. But they call it a practice for a reason. We are always learning. The law is always developing, and it is really important, I think, that that you would have somebody that has more experience than you do, that you can reach out to whenever you have a question about how to approach a particular issue, or even how to handle a client. That's one aspect of family law, is sometimes we get very angry clients. And so being able to manage that client and bring them back down is an important skill to have, and having a mentor to talk about how we do that is also, I believe, helpful. Something I wish I had known when I was an undergrad or when I decided to go to law school, I don't think I appreciated, kind of similar to what Chris said, is that we're dealing with people who have a problem they can't solve. And I would definitely reiterate that. When my phone rings, there's usually a problem on the other side that somebody doesn't know how to solve, and they need my help solving it. And I don't know what that issue is going to be. So I think when I first started, that kind of took me aback. I don't know why I didn't understand that that's what I was going to be doing. But over time and practice and with my practice and my experience, I now expect that. I also agree with always expect the unexpected. I can plan out my day to the best of my ability, but there is always the possibility that something is going to happen. Some emergency is going to come into my office. I'm going to get ex parte notice from an opposing counsel that is going to take what I thought I was going to do that day and turn it on its head. So I think that's all I have.
Thank you so much. And it's so interesting to see sort of how all of your journeys and discussions and experiences are really kind of mapping onto each other's in interesting ways that I'm sure we'll talk about. Next up, and he's already very prepared, we have Abe Galvin Sanchez with Best Best in Krieger.
Hi, everyone. I'm Abe Sanchez with Best in Krieger. I did prepare some brief slides, if I can figure out how to use this. Okay. And so a little bit about me. I'm like I said, I'm with Best in Krieger. So Henry is actually a colleague of mine. I'm an associate as well, a fifth-year associate now, and I'm in the firm's municipal law practice group, based out of our Ontario office. But I live in Moreno Valley. Like actually, I'm 10 minutes away from our Riverside office, so I frequently go there as well. And I'll get to this a little bit later, but because of the nature of my practice, I have clients San Bernardino County, Riverside County, pretty much throughout the state, for various things. And so first off, I'll start with, how did I get here? And so I did go to UCR, so go Highlanders. I graduated in 2015. My major while at UCR was political science, law, and society. I think, and so while I was at UCR, I also did student government. I was in ASUCR for a few years, including VP of External Affairs. I also, was in Kappa Sigma and also was an RA and did a lot of res life things for pretty much the whole time that I was there. And in terms of, I didn't really do a lot of legal related things while I was in law school, aside from the law and society part of my major, which to me was very, very helpful because I realized when I was at UCR that actually political science is not what I thought it was. It's not really what I want to do. I kind of always knew that I wanted to go to law school, and I realized poli-sci probably wasn't that, but the law and society portion of the major was really helpful in terms of getting an understanding of what exactly, law school might be like in some ways. And so that was very helpful. Like I said, I graduated in 2015. I was in a hurry, and maybe I should not have been, but I was in a hurry, and I did undergrad in 3 years. I went straight through to law school, and I went to Berkeley Law for law school. From there, I graduated in 2018. While I was at Berkeley Law, formerly Bolt, I worked several jobs throughout the whole time, and I also did various things, right? For example, in my 1L summer, I was a legal intern with AAA Insurance, and I actually kept that job through the remainder of law school. So I had a little bit of taste of insurance law and what this might be like. I also did two semesters in the California Asylum Representation Clinic, where I helped represent some individuals seeking asylum, because I wanted a taste of what immigration law might be like. In terms of what I focused on in terms of classes was mainly business law. I got a school's business law certificate where, you complete a certain amount of business law courses and you get that certificate. And all of that is to say that I frankly, when I went into law school, I thought I would do immigration law. I always kind of thought I wanted to do that. I personally am first generation. I was born in Mexico. I was undocumented for quite a while until I was about 18. And so we thought, I want to give back by immigration law, and I wanted to get a taste of that. But I realized after doing the clinic that that's probably not really what I wanted to do. for various reasons, including, realizing that I'm probably not a huge fan of practices that involve direct client services. And and so I did that. I thought I wanted to do business law, but did my 2L summer at BBK in the firm's Ontario office and Riverside office for 2 weeks. And while I was there, I did a lot of municipal law, which is something that I actually didn't take any courses for in law school, at least not specifically like no municipal law or land use or anything like that. But I enjoyed it, and I knew that I wanted to come back to this area. I'm also a single father, and at that time, my son was relatively young and back here. So I knew I wanted to come to a firm back here. I knew I needed to find a firm with some flexibility for me to be able to, to do things as a single father. And so, with that being said, I enjoyed my time at BBK, and so I decided, I'll go back to BBK, even though I'm probably not going to be practicing business law or anything else that I have experience with. And so I started at BBK after graduating. We started off the first time I was at the firm, I was a law clerk and municipal with the firm's Advanced Record Center, which is basically a part of the firm that handles everything like related to Public Records Act requests and e-discovery, and whatnot. And then after passing the bar, I transitioned into an associate in the municipal law practice group. Like I said, now I'm a fifth-year associate, so I passed the bar in 2019. And during that time, one key difference is from Henry is I'm actually not a litigator. I do only transactional municipal work. I will very, very rarely go to court, and that's really just when I'm covering for litigators that might need some coverage. And to the extent possible, I call in. We like to go to court, and I probably chose the wrong profession for this, but I'm not somebody who enjoys dressing up that much. And so, and having to go in person to things and going to court and whatnot. So I actually really enjoy being a transactional attorney. And so now most of my work is, general advice to cities, public and other public agencies. And then in terms of big practice areas, I do a lot of work with the Public Records Act. And I'm now a few years into kind of a subgroup at our firm, the firm's housing working group. As you know, California is in a huge housing shortage, and there are always new housing laws. And there's also, our clients need a lot of help in terms of financing affordable housing, real estate transactions. I've been doing a lot of that lately as well. So that's kind of an overview of my path and how I got here. And so, and what I do now. And so what does my kind of average day look like? So one thing for me is I want to make sure that I have my weekends off. And so thankfully with the firm and the practice that I have, I can structure that pretty well for my week. And so I typically, in order to be able to take that time off, so just backing up a step, and when you work at a firm, a lot of times you'll have what is called a billable hour requirement, right? Certain amount of hours that you have to meet within the year. And so for our firm, it's 1850. And so that's roughly, I did the rough math of like 150 hours a month. Or 7 billable hours a day. And so because I want to take the weekends off, I try to stack my weekdays pretty high. So I don't have to worry about the weekends. And then later on in the year, if I want to take more time off and whatnot, I know I'm safe. And so I usually try to do at least 8 to 12 billable hours a day on weekdays. And when I say billable hours, that's hours that can be billed to the client. You of course are going to have a slew of other things to do, right? Like I have a lot of administrative emails, or participating in webinars like this, or doing marketing. Those aren't billable to the client, and so I try to do at least 8 to 12 billable hours. But that is naturally my days are not just going to be 8 to 12 hours because you have this added layer of additional things. And so usually what I will do is I will, drop my son off at school 8 a.m., get back home, take a second to, prep and start working around maybe 8 or 9 a.m. And I'll typically step out in the middle of the day, like 2 p.m. or so, to go pick up my son from school, come back and then work until it's time to put him to bed. And then maybe he goes to bed, depending on my day, get back up and work a little more. And so that's typically what I'll do. Usually I'm at home because of first off, firms and companies can range very widely on, flexibility in terms of working from home or having to be in person. I am, thanks to the, pandemic, one good thing that came out of it, at least for me, in the midst of all the chaos, was, there was a huge transition to remote work. And for example, our firm is you can work remotely for the most part if your practice allows it and you're getting your work done. And so I work from home pretty much. Sometimes I will need to go to the office, or I want to go to I might have an office event, things like that, and I'll go in. And sometimes we'll have in-person meetings. So I serve as deputy city attorney for the city of Palm Springs, and I cover their administrative appeals board. That's in person. Also deputy city attorney for the city of San Jacinto, and I go in person to there. Sometimes you'll have these in-person meetings, but for the most part, our clients understand that, calls and meetings over Zoom will work, and internally that's usually sufficient as well. So most of the time I'm at home. And because of that, most of the time I'm working alone. I actually, don't mind that. No, I love my colleagues and I have a great time, but I find it actually a lot easier for me to focus when I really don't have that kind of added layer of a distraction. And so I mostly work from home and I enjoy it. And if I need to reach people, I'll give them a call, I'll text them, email them, etc. Now, the good thing about the interconnectedness we have now is, you can pretty much reach who you need to reach without having to see them in person. And so my day will vary widely, but really the most common tasks that I do are I'm either like reviewing documents, I'm drafting agreements, I'm in Zoom meetings, I'm doing research, I'm like responding to emails. Like some days, I'm sure all of the attorneys on this panel can agree, you can spend a whole day responding just to emails. And so those are kind of the typical, things that I'll do. It gets a little, especially now that I'm working on affordable housing real estate transactions, my day can be upended really easily, right? Because if you have a closing coming up on a deal or something, that's going to eat up, a good chunk of your day. So they can vary widely, but that's kind of what I do on a daily basis in general. So the best part of my career, I would say, and I think Chris talked about this earlier, is the flexibility. I think in the legal career, there's a very stereotypical attorney that, and some people enjoy this, and there are attorneys who do this, but there's kind of this stereotype of, everyone's a litigator, everyone gets up and goes to court first thing in the morning. Doesn't necessarily have to be your practice if you choose for it to not be that. And so I really like the flexibility that a legal career provides, because you can do a wide variety of things, depending on what your practice is, depending on what, firm or where you work at. And so, and even, within the firm, I really, really enjoy the flexibility I have from working from home, especially as a single parent. Before the pandemic, when I was going to the office more, I would drop my son off at a babysitter at 8 in the morning. I wouldn't be able to pick him up until 6 p.m. And then, at that point, I have maybe 2 to 3 hours with him before he has to go to bed. Now I can drop him off at school, pick him back up. And, obviously I'm working while at home, but at least I have, him around and I can spend more time with him overall. and or if I need to run an errand, I'll go run an errand. I really enjoy that flexibility. I think it works really well for me. And what's the worst part? I mean, I would say it's sometimes the work can be overwhelming, either just by the sheer amount of work you have or by, the issues involved. But the reason why I put a question mark there is I feel like that's probably a part of any, legal practice, and certainly a part of most professional life is that sometimes it can be overwhelming. So and another thing is too, is I actually feel like I'm somebody who works better and works more efficiently when I'm, at the brim. I find it a lot easier for me to focus when I know I need to do XXX back to back, instead of taking breaks. And so that works for me, and it might not work for you, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. In terms of things that I wish I knew or whatnot, I put here some things that I generally like to tell people to consider when you're choosing a practice in the legal career. And goes to two main things I want to say. And the first one is, one thing you might want to consider is how will the practice that you choose impact your day-to-day life, right? Your experience can be very different if you're a litigator than if you're a transactional attorney. For example, and that will affect things like, maybe can you be in person? Can you be at home more, or do you need to be in person? Do you have to go to court? Do you not have to go to court? It'll also, change widely between if you're doing like public interest type work versus working in, in a private setting. One thing I didn't put on this list is, whether or not you're providing direct client services, it's gonna, really affect who you're speaking to and who's gonna be on the other end of your call on a day-to-day, right? You might, if you're doing direct client services, you might have, a kind of a wide of people to engage with, and that may or may not be for you. Your practice will also vary widely depending on whether you're at a firm, you're in-house at a company or something like that. From my experience with, when I was a legal intern at AAA, it was very much, at least for the staff attorneys, like 9 to 5, right? Whereas at a firm, it's not gonna necessarily be 9 to 5. And even within firms, there's a wide variety, right? If you go into big law, you're going to have a higher expectation than, you might have working for a smaller or mid-sized firm. And even amongst firms of each class, there's a wide variety, right? Like I said, BBK is very supportive of remote work. And I don't think I would want to work at a firm that is not supportive of remote work. But there are firms that are very much trying to get back to strictly, you have to be in person and whatnot. So those are some things that you'll want to consider. And in terms of what do you want your day-to-day life to look like and what practice might work for you on that. And kind of on a related note, the next tip I said is, what you're good at, what you enjoy, and what works for you in terms of making enough money, having flexibility, etc., aren't always going to be aligned. They're not always going to overlap. And so, unfortunately, you could be very good at something, but not actually enjoy it, or it might not pay enough. You might enjoy something, but turns out you're probably not the best at it. And so you need to kind of balance those competing, interests and find a happy medium, find something that you're relatively good at, you somewhat enjoy and gets you where you need to be in terms of flexibility, money, etc. Find that happy medium. And, you might find as you start practicing that, what you thought was working for you is not actually, working out. You might not like it, or you might not be very good at it. And I think you can't be afraid to switch it up if you need to. And so that's kind of general tips for you and a little bit about my practice. I think that's it. And I believe I'm the last panelist. So thank you for your time. And I'm happy to answer questions as we go into that part of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Abe. We actually have one more panelist before we get to Q&A.
Sorry.
Nathan Rodriguez with the Riverside County Office of the District Attorney.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for forgetting about me, Abe, but no problem.
I'm sorry.
My name is Nathan Rodriguez. I'm a deputy district attorney here at the Riverside County District Attorney's Office. I'm currently in the general felonies unit, but a bit about me and kind of my path to my current practice. I was born and raised in Corona, California. I attended RCC, which is just down the street, the community college. After RCC, I transferred to West Virginia University, out of state, to play lacrosse. After that, once I graduated in 2017, I took a couple years off before applying to law school. First, I got a job as a server at a local restaurant, and then eventually I started working for Congress, for my current district that I was living in, the 42nd congressional district. And that was during a contentious time in our country, so I really wasn't feeling it too much, and I wasn't much into politics in the first place, even though I majored in political science. So I did the next best thing that's least contentious, which is to become a prosecutor. I attended California Western School of Law in San Diego. While there, I interned at the San Diego County Public Defender's Office and also the Riverside County DA's office, where I eventually got hired on after 2 years of interning. I've been with the office for a little less than 2 years, so I think I may be maybe the youngest attorney here in terms of experience. However, once you join the DA's office, you have a wealth of experience just after a few months. I've done over 6 jury trials on my own, 40 preliminary hearings. I do violation of probation hearings, restitution hearings, you name it. So if you want experience in the courtroom, this is definitely the job for you. I even had a hearing this morning right before I hopped on here. So I'm in court every single day. I'm currently assigned to one department, Department 61, where I show up every morning. They call our cases, and if it's mine, we get sent out to a courtroom, and I do whatever is assigned for that day. But my average day usually looks like I come in 8 a.m., usually get here a little early, around 7:30, just to prep whatever hearings I have. You see a few files behind me, I think. Those are just my sentencing files. But come in, I prep, see what's on for my calendar that day. Head to court around 8:10, 8:15. Court usually starts around 8:30. While I walk over to the court at the Hall of Justice, I'm usually just hoping and praying that all my witnesses and officers have shown up for the hearing. Once I show up to court, if everyone's there, I can announce ready. Judge will look for a courtroom and they'll send us off. Yesterday, I was in court from 8:30 to 4:30. I did 3 hearings. Today I had 1 hearing and was able to, push everything off to Friday or next week so I could take the time to come talk to you guys. But usually my day to day is focused on going to court. It's every day I'm in some sort of litigation, some sort of evidentiary hearing, whether it's a preliminary hearing, which is a probable cause hearing to see if we can move forward on certain criminal charges, or a restitution hearing if somebody's disputing an amount that they owe to a victim. So my day-to-day is ever changing. It's exciting, I can tell you that much. I never lose interest because I never know what I'm going to get on that particular day. It's definitely a career where if you're not interested in talking and arguing and being a part of the criminal justice system, it can get quite hectic. every day I'm dealing with defense attorneys, victims, witnesses, you name it. So I'm constantly talking to people, constantly talking to judges, resolving cases, giving offers, and it's definitely exciting. I usually say if you don't want to be a DA and you end up at the DA's office, you probably won't want to stay here long, because it's definitely not an easy job, but it's, I think, the most fun, because I get to be in court like in the movies every single day, objecting, making closing arguments, opening statements, presenting evidence, you name it. So if you're interested in becoming a prosecutor, I would say it definitely, you need some sort of passion for the law, or at least just upholding justice or impacting people's lives. So as far as, my, what I enjoy most about this job is just that it's the impact I have on people's lives every single day. Um, you know, Sometimes when a victim comes to us, we're the only people um, that have ever cared about their situation ever in their entire lives. So it's definitely a lot of responsibility, and there's sometimes a lot of weight on my shoulders as to how I go about things. But my best practice is always just be fair and honest. And usually you're working with a lot of type A people, but I'm not too uptight. I'm a pretty relaxed guy. I have a Lord of the Rings calendar in the back. I enjoy sports and shows. So most of my day, once it's over at 4:35, I don't take much work home. Um, but the impact I have on people's lives is usually what I take home every day, because you're dealing with sometimes the worst types of situations for those individuals, and it can be quite overwhelming for myself. But I always put myself in their shoes, and the perspective of, well, if it's overwhelming for me, like, I can't imagine how it is for the victim in a situation like that, or their family. So I've always had a motto that, you know I, I'm I may be nervous, but at the end of the day, I'm probably the third most nervous person in the courtroom, because there's a defendant in there who's facing consequences for his action, who's probably pretty nervous. Then there's a victim in there who's wanting to seek some sort of justice for the wrong that's been committed against them. So I always keep that in mind whenever I'm nervous going to court. It's at the end of the day, I'm just advocating for what I believe in, and at the end of the day, I get to go home to my own wife and my own house, and get to continue living on, while this is a huge moment for everyone else involved. So that's probably my favorite part about the job. My least favorite is actually the same thing. Is my job requires a lot of outside people and situations in order for me to feel successful in certain ways. Uh, Sometimes I'm strapped because the law says I can't do something, or sometimes judges are just not listening to my argument, or they have their own opinion on things. Sometimes even the victims are upset at me because I'm prosecuting a husband or a wife or mother, father, you name it. And essentially everyone on all sides of the aisle is mad at me. And, I still have to show up to work and have a job to do. But it sometimes feels like a thankless job, because I don't have clients. I'm representing the county of Riverside, but at times it can feel, extremely thankful, because, like I said, we have a huge impact on people's day to day and their larger lives as a whole as well too. So it's very rewarding. It's definitely a high workload, I would say, is another thing that can add to the stress. But for the most part, I come in every day 8 o'clock, and I leave at 5 p.m. And unless I'm in trial, which I have a few coming up, I don't tend to take much work home with me. So um, I don't have any billable hours. So it's always nice to be public interest, to where you don't have any billable hours. I'm able to do like my MCLE trainings here at the office. They host quite a few every month, usually weekly, so I can get my or keep up with the state bar requirements. But yeah, my job requires a lot of preparation and a lot of serious situations. So I do usually try to keep it light. I usually try to be myself, but I always try to be best prepared for the situation, because I am constantly arguing in court I'm having to think on my feet at all times. It does come, with some stress, but there's always a good support system here at the DA's office as well too. We have quite a few experienced attorneys, and then even people less experienced than me that, if I can't make it in that day, some people can cover me for a certain hearing, or some people could appear for me on the calendar if I'm running late, if I'm having car trouble, or whatever it may be. There's always a good support system when it comes to the DA's office. So I enjoy this job immensely. It's definitely makes me feel like I'm um, an actual lawyer, because I'm constantly in the courtroom, and there's no better feeling than getting a good verdict back, and seeing your victim have a sigh of relief or feel the weight off their shoulders because of something that you were able to do for them. So I always like that feeling of helping others. And I knew I was probably going to be a DA early on, because when I was working for Congress, the one aspect that I did like was talking to my constituents and reaching out to people, seeing how they feel about a situation. So it's an exciting job, but it just requires a lot of responsibility, a lot of preparation. But truthfully, I live a pretty happy life. Like I said, I don't bring too much work home. I have my weekends to myself. I could really do whatever I like. Um, the path at the DA's office is you start in misdemeanors, where I was just 6 months ago, back in November. Once you do, it used to be 2 years as a misdemeanor attorney, but we have had a lot of turnover, and we are down quite a few attorneys that now they're bringing people up at a quicker rate. So I got moved up to the preliminary hearing unit back in November. Then in April, just a few days ago, or a couple weeks ago, they brought me up to general felonies. So now I'm handling both preliminary hearings and felony jury trials. So that's quite a bit of a quick I guess a quick transition into my career, because most of the time, if based on my experience and people I've talked to from law school, a lot of them have not even seen the inside of a courtroom, or done a trial, or even been third, fourth chair in a trial. And I myself have done multiple trials, dozens of hearings, and there are all types of hearings too. So if you want to learn the evidence code, if you want to learn how to portray yourself in a courtroom, this is the job to learn that skill. They don't necessarily train you. So once I got hired on, I was thrust into a courtroom, and they said, okay, here you go handle your caseload. And that's kind of how it was. My very first trial was a handoff child abuse trial that I got from a colleague, because she was quitting and she couldn't take the case to trial the very next day. So the day before, my supervisor comes to me and says, hey, can you do this trial? Sure, no problem. I prep it the night before as best I can. And the next day, I'm making an opening statement in front of 12 jurors that I picked earlier that morning. So you're going to learn a host of skills. You'll be one of the most skilled litigators among your law school friends if you come here. There's never a boring time. It does get contentious at times, but I believe, I think it was Elizabeth that stated that I've always liked the idea of being friendly to defense counsel, and letting people have the benefit of the doubt, because you never know when you're going to need someone to help you out in a situation. Sometimes things come up in your life and you're like, you know what, like I can't go to trial that day. So you're hoping that defense attorney will allow you to continue the case out to another day, so you can take that case to trial, and you guys could go to trial on a day that works best for both of you. So there's a lot of teamwork involved. A lot of communication is involved, and it takes all aspects of your social skills to kind of be in a position like this. And it's one of the most enjoyable aspects of this job, is constantly being in the courtroom, constantly being in communication with victims, witnesses, jurors, whatever it may be. You're always on display. You're always, it's almost like theater, where you always have your trial face on, and you're always doing your best to portray yourself in the best light in the courtroom. So that's kind of my average day, the things I enjoy most. And like I said, the least favorite is a lot of things are out of my hands. But something that really surprised me about this job is just uh, just how much is going on in this courtroom. So you kind of see on TV and you think like, oh, you see a prosecutor in TV shows, going against defense counsel, and you think, oh, they're only focused on their one case. But more than 90% of the time when I'm in trial, I'm trailing another trial, just preparing for that one to finish up so I can start the next one. So there's always something going on. You're always preparing for the next thing. So it gets hard to be present sometimes because you want to focus entirely on one thing at hand, but you have so much going on that you kind of have to prep and prepare for the next thing while you're doing one thing. And staying organized and just like I said, being prepared is kind of the best course of action for this job. And like I said earlier, you really want to, if you want to be a DA, then this is the job for you, and there's really not going to be a better job out there. But if you're kind of on the fence about, oh, do I want to be a litigator? Do I want to be in trial? Do I want to be in court all day long? Then you might want to look for something with a little more flexibility. Because if I have court, I have court. I can't, go to Disneyland that day with my wife or whatever. I can't come in late because I need to be there at 8 a.m. And, there's flexibility that comes in different ways. I don't have billable hours. So once my day is done, I can kind of just go home. I work my 8 hours. It is a salary position. I do have my weekends off. We get a lot of federal holidays. We get a lot of county holidays when the courts are closed. So there are pros and cons to this position, but I definitely think the best thing about it is the litigation aspect and the impact you're having on people's lives every single day. I just had a case yesterday where a gentleman had, $3,000 worth of his business products stolen, and we were able to win the hearing, and he's going to get full restitution. And you know, it's nice when they come to me and they're like, thank you, because I thought I was never going to get this money back, and it's nice to know that I was able to help him out on what could have been a very stressful day for him. But then also right after that, I have to go do another hearing for a 245 assault with a deadly weapon case, where it may not be as, or it may be more serious than the case I just had, but I kind of have to switch gears and go into a different mode as to helping the victim navigate, the situation in that case. So there's always something new, always in court. And yeah, I appreciate you guys having me here. If you guys have any questions, put them in the chat. Again, I'm with the Riverside County DA's office, and I look forward to meeting you future DAs one day.
Thanks so much, Nathan. So we are going to pivot now to your questions that you submitted, and I will be throwing over to Rayon, one of our fantastic Dean's Brand Ambassadors with the School of Public Policy, to moderate that. Just because we are a little bit short on time, I want to remind everybody that if your question isn't answered today, do be sure to watch out for the email next week with the sign up where you can meet individually with an RCBA member. You're welcome, obviously, at that point to ask a lingering question or anything else. But with that, Rayon, do you want to take us home?
Yeah, that would be my pleasure. Thank you so much again, and thank you to everyone joining us here today, as well to our esteemed panel. I can already tell that this panel has been extremely insightful. So for those of you who don't know me, just really briefly, my name is Rayon Kalam. I'm the Chief Ambassador for the School of Public Policy, and it is my honor to preside over this Q&A. So I'll try to get to the questions that are most commonly asked, as well as what I think are some of the most important ones. I will say, if there are any questions that the panel would specifically like to address, feel free to interrupt me at any point in time. You should be able to view all of them by clicking on the lower portion of your tab in the Q&A box versus the chat. So without further ado, I'll pose our first question from an attendee named Jose Lopez. Did anyone not pass the bar on their first attempt, and what did they do differently in studying and their approach, if not? I'll open it up to the floor.
Okay, I'll admit it. I did not pass the bar the first time. I took it twice. And I believe that the reason I didn't pass it the first time, because I did well in law school, I enjoyed law school, is I had a lot of distractions around that time and I just didn't put the time in. So the second time I studied, then I passed.
I'll do you one better, Elizabeth. I didn't pass the bar twice. I passed on the third try. So I think, as I mentioned, I graduated in 2018 from Berkeley, and I took it twice. I passed it November 2019. And so I think, to be quite frank, I don't think I put the work in that I needed to when I first took the bar. And that kind of that last time. I also felt like my bar prep course or the method that I was studying, I really tried to do like the typical thing that everyone does, which is they take a course and they try to, just do everything in order that the course says to do. And the third time that I studied for it on my own, what I thought I needed to study, and the way that worked for me. And without a course, I literally just did, I knew I was pretty good on the multiple choice, but I wanted to improve on the essay. I was pretty close from the first time. Actually, I got a 1390, which now is, I think, the passing score. It was really frustrating, but I knew I could improve on the essays, and that would take me over the edge. And so what I did is the state bar has a bunch of essay questions on their website and like model answers to those. And so I would take the essay, do it myself, and then compare it to all the model answers. I did that for every practice area. I did that for crossover practice areas, and it helped. So I mean, the only thing I would say is just make sure you study hard, but also find a study method that works for you.
And I'll just jump in on that. What I actually did with those practice essays is I literally copied them word for word, and I rewrote them sometimes 2 or 3 times. And that got the law in my head. It taught me how they wanted me to address the question. I also believe heavily in flashcards. I would flashcard the law. Even it would be those big flashcards with 15 lines on the back of it, and I would just quiz myself until I could recite the whole thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I think that's going to be very helpful. Another attendee, Sam, is asking, hi, are there any classes in law school that teach about personal injury, or also what are its contorts? But I would take this question one step further and ask, as many students might be in their undergrad, what classes should undergraduate students really be taking to get that experience that will actually be useful to them and practical to them in their experience in law?
I would say any class that makes you think in an analytical fashion. So, like I said, I was a language studies major. I learned French, I learned Spanish, and a big component of that was linguistics. So, anything that teaches you to read, write, and think is going to benefit you in law school. So, almost any undergraduate major, except maybe fine arts, dance, or art might not serve you, but any liberal arts major, any science major, I think would be just fine to prepare you for law school.
I agree. And to answer the question, personal injury is one of the covered topics in the first year curriculum for most law students. It's covered on a course called torts, which is really just an old-fashioned legalese way to say, personal injury type lawsuits. It's an interesting course, one of my favorites that I took in law school. And then as far as the definition of contorts, that it's been a while since I've had to think about that in the academic sense, but my understanding is that is the definition of the intersection between contracts and torts, and whether there are any sort of warranties or any sort of contract related issues that might ultimately develop or form into a personal injury suit. Those issues can sometimes cross over, and then you get some really interesting questions about which body of law do you apply.
Right.
Yeah, my only addition would be to plug the Law and Society, at majors again, right? If you're relatively early at UCR, like I said, the law and society part of my major was the best, most useful part in terms of what that actually gave me an insight in what law school would be like. And I know they offer that for not just poli-sci, but I think, well, at least when I was at UCR, you could do like philosophy, law, and society, and other things. So you might consider that if you're still early enough to, to complete it if you add that component.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your responses. I think in terms of the personal torts as well as the law and society courses are definitely something like I think specific that students could look out for. Unfortunately, I think that might be it for our questioning time period. So at this point in time, I will hand it back to our lovely host, Justine, and bid you all farewell.
Yeah, again, so sorry for those questions that we didn't get to. Hopefully not hopefully, we know that you got something out of all the panelist discussion, and there will be a chance again if you register to meet with an RCBA member to maybe ask some of the questions that we didn't get to. I want to thank, but at the end of the day, we couldn't do this without the panelists lending their time. So thank you so much to the 5 of you for taking an hour and a half to sit down with our students. And obviously to the RCBA as well for being willing to put on this event series with us for a second time. And finally, to the UCR School of Public Policy for their support of this event and making sure everything runs smoothly. So I had a great time. I hope everyone else did here as well. And we look forward to seeing you at a future event.